Thanks, Adam. That was a good start to the morning. And now I am going to request the very well-known Mr. Vivek Paranjpe, who really needs no introduction to this room, or for that matter to anyone in the HR fraternity in this country. Vivek has close to 40 years of work experience, a gold medalist from SHRM, on board of multiple companies. He's worked with some of the best names in the industry, and he has been involved with a number of leading institutions, including the SHRM as a visiting faculty. So I now request Vivek to share some insightful words of wisdom and bring in the industry need and experience, which is going to then help start the moderated discussion. Vivek, over to you.
Can I sit here and talk, or do you?
Please, whatever works for you.
No, you tell me.
No, whatever works for you. If you stand, I think everyone will love it more. Can you get this mic going?
And many thanks for giving me this opportunity to come and share some of my thoughts. And clearly speaking, if you look at it, the topic is your talent strategy a facilitator or a roadblock? If it's a roadblock, it's not a strategy. So the topic itself is highly questionable. HR strategy has to help enable corporations succeed. But I would put it this way, is HR a roadblock? Rather than saying talent strategy a roadblock. In fact, this question always sort of bothered me. When you are small, you are really doing everything yourself. But as you become part of a very large organization, you have multiple sub-functions within HR reporting into you, and each one of these sub-functions behaves like a separate organization. And that's where the whole problem comes up. Nobody is strategically aligned to the corporation. And this issue I used to face a lot when I grew to become the Asia Pacific HR head of Hewlett Packard Corporation at Singapore. Your comp and benefit guy will come up and say, hey, I've done exceedingly well, give me top performance rating. How do you know you've done exceedingly well? Because he has got a whole lot of metrics which shows comp ratios, which shows cost to company, and which shows how he did the surveys and how he positioned the compensation at a certain percentile based on which the attrition went up or down and stuff like that. So a whole lot of interesting, great data being shared by him. He says, look, I've done very, very well, and very intelligent people. And so they can make some superb, sexy PowerPoint presentations and show a whole lot of interesting graphs and charts and flow it. Then you have your L&D guy who comes up and says, I've done exceedingly well. How does he know he has done exceedingly well? Because again, he has got superb data. 100% of supervisors trained in first-line supervisory development workshops. 99% trained in that, and 99% trained in that, and 70% trained in that. Phenomenal data. Then those happy sheets, saying that's effectiveness of the program based on those happy sheets, and stuff like that. It goes on and on and on. And your business partners, who are the most important front end of HR, they come up with a whole lot of data on attrition, and they will come to you with a whole lot of data on employee sat surveys and stuff like that. And you start saying that everybody in my organization is performing exceedingly well. And somewhere in late 90s, we had this completely new function that got evolved because of internet and because of much exceedingly good telecom network, and that was HR services organizations. This was a completely new animal that came in. And this group started giving you a whole lot of very interesting information on transactions, saying that turnaround time of settlement of dues was 39 hours. But did that delight the employee? That is not concerned. I've reduced the turnaround time from 39 hours to 35 hours. So I need an applause, and I need a pat on the back, and I need to be recognized and rewarded for that. So a whole lot of measures related to the transactions came in. And as a poor fellow, as a HR director for Asia Pac, I would collect whole lot of these data from my different sub-functions and go and present it to my boss. My boss says, but all this doesn't make any sense to me. This is completely irrelevant to me. What is relevant to me is we are going through downturn. And what are you as a group doing about it? And we're really doing nothing about it. Because our strategies are not linked to the strategies of the CEO. The whole problem with data and problem with information is this information and data we just don't know how to use. We are inundated with data. We are inundated with huge information, and because of ERP platforms being fantastic, like SAP or PeopleSoft or whatever platform that you may be using, and because of, again, financial data that are outstanding, you have probably overflow of data happening at your desk. Our ability to sort of put those pieces of jigsaw puzzle together and make some sense out of it is exceedingly limited. We got to move towards a dynamic data creation kind of a situation, because the kind of data that I used to generate last year is no more relevant today. Is completely irrelevant today, because today my corporation is going through very different kind of challenges and problems. And today I need to have data which will enable me take right decisions for the corporation to solve its today's problems. Now, problem is to shift from the old data mining and old data application kind of set to completely new requirement is a huge transition. It's not only a huge transition, but it also is a big problem for the HR professionals who, first of all, are not data savvy people. We HR guys are not data savvy. We HR guys are not tech savvy. The guys who help us are IT fellows. The guys who help us are those great analytics people who have no clue of what's happening in the company or what is sort of bothering the corporations. And I think that is where we have to make sure that we in HR community, first of all, become ourselves IT savvy. We ourselves in HR become data savvy, and we are able to quickly move dynamically from where we are to where we are. And I see that happening constantly, because I mean, recently I was involved with a very large, very respected corporation, helping them with some interesting data and consulting kind of transformational kind of work. And I was aghast, I was shocked, I was very surprised. They were talking in terms of doing some kind of potential assessment, and they were talking in terms of performance management, putting everything in that stupid 9-box matrix of GE, which probably worked long time back, and saying that now we are going to assess our people and sort of decide who are our high flyers and great potentials. I said, look, on what basis are you assessing potential? Based on competencies and capabilities that they had defined 10 years back, which was relevant for that corporation at that point of time. Today the time has changed. Today you don't need those competencies and capabilities. So today you need a very different method of assessing people. Today you need to assess people against completely new set of competencies, maybe the competencies which are future focused, which will be required hence 2 years, because by the time I identify him as a right person for the role and enable him acquire those right skills, capabilities, and put him in the role, it's going to be maybe 2 years. And whatever that I have identified him for is irrelevant tomorrow. And that is where my problem comes up. And that we as HR guys behave like demigods. And we say that this 35-year-old man has no potential. How did you decide that? How did you decide that? Based on some stupid assessment centers activities? And I'm not saying, and I'm not trying to say that assessment centers are bad or potential assessment is bad, but we have to keep in mind that these tools have their own huge limitations. And our capability to ensure that they remain dynamic and they quickly evolve is very, very limited. And that is where I think the big challenge comes in. So data is important, technology is important, I'm not at all saying it's not important, but the most important part is that human judgment factor and the intuitive capabilities of people or faculties of the people, they are equally important. And that's where somewhere we are missing out. Too much of reliance on data, too much of reliance on doing everything arithmetical is a problem. In fact, one of the corporations that I was visiting, very interesting, that HR head was telling me about the great performance management program that they have. Everything is arithmetically perfectly calculated. Saying that this person has a performance rating of 3.39, and based on that performance rating, the compensation is evolved and so on and so forth. And I'm saying, how do you know his performance rating is 3.39? He says, that's what we have perfected. Well, because look at it, companies of engineers, companies of great statisticians and mathematical stuff. You know, we don't want to be biased corporation. I heard you speaking, saying that we want to eliminate or minimize biases, which is a laudable objective. But in the process, we become so much of data-centric that we forget that the entire goal-setting process was non-mathematical, was more on intuition. You talked of quarter-ending presentation. When you set targets and goals for your country business heads, you do it saying that this is a bloody challenging thing, you do it, how you do it, I don't care. And then you evaluate him for accurately for that numbers. That becomes a big problem. I'm saying, hey Karnai, you've got to get that target. Come what may, it is not based on any market analysis and data and fine-tuned stuff, but the thing that comes out is very accurate. So when I came out of that HR head's office, I went to his secretary and I said, look, what was your performance evaluation rating last year? She gave me some figure, some very crazy figure. It was 4.26 something. So I said, how did you get to that and what does it mean to you? She says, this means I'm going to get a salary increase of 3,400 rupees. So I said, but how did this number come? He says, nothing, I just sat with my manager and we agreed that I must get this kind of salary increase. Then we manipulated a few things and I got this, which is an unfortunate reality. So when we are depending on that data, we have to also look at the source from where that data is coming. And most of the time, the data which is coming is not necessarily a very reliable source. And I think that is where we got to, as HR community, put in our huge effort. And I would urge the entire HR community to look at the whole data with a very fresh perspective. One of the corporations wanted to change its working hours. So I was challenging it and saying that, look, if you change your working hours from 10 a.m. to 9 a.m., worry about commuting capability of the people. You know, when people coming from, let's say, central suburbs, coming beyond Ambernath, they have to travel 2 hours. People coming from close by suburbs, it's very easy, you can change anytime you want. They said, yeah, we got data where people live. So somebody was told to generate some kind of a report as to residence of the people based on the addresses that exist in the system, and most of the addresses were wrong because you have not updated your fundamental data. And that you see very often. Data cleaning up in itself becomes a very significant major exercise in any large corporation. In small corporation, things are pretty easy, but in large corporations, it's tough. Reliance, Anupam knows. The amount of time we spent almost a year to just help clean up data of 200,000 people across. Because you went from SAP version X to SAP version Y, and that migration of data and a whole lot of issues that go with it. People have not updated their data, and if I'm going to depend my, create all my decisions around that data, which is not necessarily right, I have a big problem. So I think what we need to worry about is our strategies have to be, as HR, linked to the strategy of the CEO. We got to stop mining huge data because there's a data overflow. We got to mine only that data which is relevant at that point of time for the corporation. I think that becomes very crucial. Most of the people are not necessarily aligned to their CEO. The chairman is having a sleepless night because of one or two issues. So let me align my entire corporation towards that. There is always a maintenance function. And that maintenance function has to be done. For example, an L&D head has to run 100% supervisory development workshops to make sure all supervisors are trained on a routine basis, to make sure that 100% employees go through safety training, to make sure 100% people go through some fundamentals of quality training and so on and so forth. And to me, that's a maintenance function. That's a hygiene factor for which I'm not going to reward you or recognize you. Actually, I'm going to punish you if you don't do it well. Does it make sense? The moment I say that's a hygiene function, it has to be done. For example, if this room is clean and neat, I'm not going to reward that steward. But if I am delighted, then I should be rewarding the steward. Now, we have to differentiate between hygiene data and the strategic data. And once that hygiene function is done and maintenance function is done, we say today the corporation is going through a big downturn. Tell me how is L&D function enabling corporation come out of the downturn? And I'm going to evaluate you on that. And I'm going to reward you and recognize you for that. And not for maintenance function. If you don't do maintenance function, you are out. I mean, that's either you do it or you don't do it. Does it make sense? But a lot of time, the information that is lying and hitting your desk is all about maintenance function. To me, my EA should look at it, and my EA should say, yes, maintenance is all right, so you can have a comfortable sleep. That's all. But to grow, I need to work out. And then, that is where we have to start focusing on how do I turn around my corporation. Let's say if it is going through a downturn, L&D function alone can't work. That's where there has to be a teamwork of different sub-functions put together. My recruitment head, my L&D head, my talent management head, my industrial relations head, they have to come together and put their minds together and say, in order to come out of this nonsense, we have to do some downsizing. And if we have to do downsizing, my industrial relations guy, my comp and benefit guy, they have to all work together, and then there will be one comprehensive data, which will show that these are the 10 efforts that we did and this is how we enabled the corporation to succeed. So I think that part somewhere is missing. That part